Welcome to Codex History of Video Games. My name's Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week, we are continuing our journey through Console Wars by Blake J. Harris, a wonderful book about the late 80s, early 90s days of Sony. Well, Sony's in there too, but Sega and Nintendo, and the rivalry between the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, which is, let's be honest, like really the hot point of all console rivalries. Like whatever console rivalry you think you got going on the playground right now, I guarantee you Super Nintendo versus Genesis was much, much more heated back in the day. People died probably over this.
We're a history podcast that's like, people died probably.
So yeah, we're on chapter 12, right?
Yeah, we're on chapter 12 today. We're covering that. And chapter 12 is called The Revolution Will Be Pixelated, which is a fun reference, and I like it a lot as the title goes. So, last where we left off, Kalinske had this meeting he had to go to Sega of Japan to finally explain his plan, and now we are at that meeting, and boy, oh boy, is it uncomfortable.
Oh, this is a super uncomfortable meeting because what gets me about this meeting is that they hire Kalinske to basically say, hey, take a look at what we're doing in America in general, and like, tell us what's going on. Tell us what you want to do to make it better. Like, ostensibly, they think he has some sort of expertise that he can bring to the table here. And then they just get super mad at him after he explains his plan.
Yeah, it's just a room full of all these big businessmen. The board of it's probably the board of directors for Sega of Japan.
Sega of Japan, yeah.
And Nakayama is there also, who's the one who hired Kalinske. And they note in the book how he doesn't act like his normal, like, because he's kind of like a hotshot businessman when he hangs out with Kalinske. But this is a very different environment for them. And essentially, Kalinske just lays out his 4-point plan, and Toyota is translating for him. And that 4-point plan, if you didn't know, is based on 4 things. Those 4 things are games, price, marketing, and development. Now, when it says games, he means they're going to kind of have games that are pushed more towards their base. They're like good games. They want to have good games.
You gotta have games, as we all know.
You gotta have games, and everyone talks about that in the whole thing. Now, the big thing about price is that they're actively going to do the thing we talk about all the time on this podcast: give away the razors, sell the blades. And by that, they are dropping the price of the Sega Genesis to $149 when it was originally $189. Yeah,
they want to be cheaper than Nintendo because they're assuming that when the Super Nintendo comes out, because it hasn't come out yet, that it's going to be more expensive than $149.
Yeah. And also, I guess I should mention this about games too. I don't think I covered that point well enough. I'm going to redo this. So with games, the games were seen as being kind of unsophisticated. And I think we may have mentioned this before. The Genesis was out already. The Sega Genesis was out.
Yeah, it'd been out for like a couple of years almost.
Yeah, being bundled with a game called Altered Beast, which is a fighting game that I actually have a friend named Sean who's a really big fan of, which I like that someone plays this game and loves this game. But it wasn't really a great console launch title to be packaged in.
Yeah, it wasn't super fun.
The best description of it is it's an arcade game. So you're playing very quick matches. The replayability is not really that great, and there's no real story at all. So the big switch with the games aspect of the 4-point plan is removing Altered Beast, putting in Sonic the Hedgehog. That's the big piece. Because that's the game that's more angsty but cute and fun, and kids will like it. And it doesn't feel like an arcade port either.
Yeah, and it's something that you can't get anywhere else because, like you said, it's not an arcade port. And if you recall at the end where we left off the chapter before this, when they say, we're going to sell so many copies of Sonic, and Tom Kalinske says, no, we're not going to sell any copies. This is what he's talking about. He's like, we're going to bundle it in with the Sega Genesis and give it away for free, basically.
Yeah, Sonic's so good, but they're still going to lose money on it because they want it to be the sell for their system.
Yeah.
And now the third branch is marketing, and marketing really just means those ads like, Sega do what Nintendo don't. You know, those kind of attack style ads and that pushback marketing, bad boy marketing is how I'll put it.
They're the underdog and they want to be punching up here and like taking shots at Nintendo.
Exactly. And the fourth part of the plan, the fourth point of the 4-point plan is development. And development really means, and I think this is one of those things that really probably upset that room of board members. they got to start developing games that are more tailored to an American audience, was Kalinski's point.
If they want to be a success in America, you got to do that.
Exactly. And so that was kind of the 4-point plan. And this caused like instant anger. And so much so to the point that Kalinske kind of has a flashback about what happens to him at Mattel. And I love this part because we kind of never really got explained to us what happened at Mattel. Essentially, Kalinske got caught in the political power struggles of a board of, not board of directors, but the board, of people that run a company, a publicly traded company. And he became the CEO, but they thought at 38 he was too young, so they hired this other person to be a co-CEO, and that was just a bunch of baloney, and he really didn't want the position, so he left that position. They tried to offer him COO, and he's like, I'm done with all the politics of this. Yeah. So he's instantly regretting that he's going to be back in this again. He's like, oh no, what have I stepped into? It's Mattel all over again, but this time it's Sega.
Yeah, that's a real bummer for him. This flashback, which I think is a rhetorical device. I don't think that he actually had a flashback in this boardroom. I think that's a author's tool for like sort of helping set context here of like how this could have made Tom feel when he said something to a board and they were like, nah, dude.
I think I agree with you. I think it's probably a narrative device, but still, it's a great one, and I love it.
Yeah, no, that's why I really love how this book is written, because it doesn't have to be actually accurate. I'm not here for accuracy. I'm here for the drama.
That's right. The hot gossip, the corporate intrigue. So
right.
The chapter ends with Nakayama actually defending Kalinske and saying, this is why I hired you. I hired you because we needed to do something different. So you can go do your plan, but it better not fail, essentially, is what he says.
Yeah, and I think that's the attitude you have to have especially when you like chase someone down to hire them for this role. You want them for that expertise that they're going to bring. If it was going to be something that you wanted or could have thought of without that person, why did you even hire them? Like you want them to come to you with something that's like crazy and it sounds absolutely bonkers, because that's something you wouldn't have thought of, and it's probably what you need.
Exactly. I 100% agree.
Trust the people that you hire.
Trust the people that you hire. And I think like this is, again, I don't know what's going to happen later on in the book, but I don't think this is always going to be the case.
Yeah. Well, hey, it doesn't always work out.
Doesn't always work out. But, for now, he's being supported. So this jump cuts into chapter 13, which is called The Winds of Change, which is a great 80s song. Did you remember the Winds of Change song? I think it was the Scorpions that did this song.
I don't know. I probably heard it, but it's not ringing any bells here. This is also part 2 of the book called Sonic versus Mario. So we're really getting into it now.
We're getting into we're done with introductions here, folks. We're into the book. We're into the real stuff. So Nintendo, the whole thing starts with this like, the wind blows past the mountains and everything. I loved this. I thought it was so silly. The whole point is that we're going to Kyoto, and this is the part where Nintendo is shipping the Super Famicom. So they are not taking any breaks in manufacturing. They're testing consoles from the manufacturer, packaging them up, shipping them to stores to sell. And the reason they have to do this at midnight is because of the Yakuza. I forgot about this.
Oh, man. Yeah, they're going to come steal these consoles.
Yeah, they heard rumors. Yamauchi heard rumors that they were going to hijack trucks and steal all their stuff, which that alone would be a great movie, I think.
Oh, man. Imagine being one of the people packing these boxes, being like, oh, by the way, just so you know, Yakuza might come by and steal all of these, so try not to let that happen.
I know. It sounds so ridiculous to me. It sounds like it's a movie. It's the movie. So they're all packing these up, and this is where they bring up a lot of stuff about Nintendo's practices, which we've heard a little bit before, but we're getting into them actually only planning to ship 300,000 units.
Classic Nintendo, always undercutting, or yeah, I guess undercut's the right word. I don't know. Shipping fewer than they said they would.
Yeah, undercutting sounds better than shipping fewer than they said they would. Undershipping. Undercutting's way cooler than undershipping. Okay. That means that 80% of the people who made reservations with stores in Japan for a Super Famicom are not getting a Super Famicom. That's how undershipped these are. And there's some other stuff going on here, too. They talk about how the development and what Yamauchi wanted when they were designing the Super Famicom. Because if they had it their way, and this is important to note, they would have just kept selling 8-bit systems for forever. 2 or 3 more years.
We could still be buying the NES today.
That's funny to think about. They have just such a control on the market. They never make anything else. They just only make 8-bit consoles.
Everybody's like, nobody can make anything better. Nobody has figured this out. We've hit the pinnacle of technology. And it's The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening.
That's right.
On Game Boy.
They wanted to have the Super Famicom be backwards compatible, and that was what the compromise they lost with the engineering people at Nintendo's R&D 2 department. Because, as we all know, the Super Famicom or Super Nintendo does not have backwards compatibility with the NES. And this comes up later when they show off the SNES, and Kalinski's like, well, that's a mistake. You know, they're all like, oh, geez, what are they doing?
Oh, good. Oh, boy.
But they had to do it for a real reason, and that was the price. Because if they kept the backwards compatibility parts of the console in the Super Famicom, it would have raised the price by $75. And the Super Nintendo, I believe, already retailed at $249.99.
Yeah, and I think that was probably about the price of an NES on its own. Like, so if you really wanted to be able to play NES games, you could just spend the same amount and get an NES. And people aren't buying Super Nintendos to play NES games. Not for $75.
They're really not. That was the big part of this chapter, I feel like, is the Super Famicom's release. And then we have a fun, entertaining scene in the end where Sega gets their hands on a Super Famicom. This is Sega of America, because Sega of Japan gets 2. They buy them, they get them, they keep one for Sega of Japan, and they mail the other one to Sega of America. And there's like this big moment where it's like corporate Christmas where they're all like, it's here. We get to play this game. And what they determine is they don't think it's very impressive. They're
like, this isn't that great.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's Nilsson, right? Nilsson's the one that's the guy who plays games, actually, in their group of people. And he plays the first level in front of them, and he's like, this is kind of just the same thing. This is still Mario. You know, because Sega's got this super, super fast hedgehog doing crazy stuff.
Yep.
So that's where we leave off in chapter 13. And they decide, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take this Super Famicom to Walmart and show them how lame their console is compared to our console. And that goes into chapter 14, which is called Segaville, a town of Sega.
A whole town of Segas.
A whole town of Sega. And Toyota and Kalinske this time go together because they feel like if they work together, they'll do a lot better job convincing the corporate head of electronics at Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas, to have Sega on the shelves. And it kind of gets built up like, oh, is this going to be their like victory? Is this it? And then, nope. Like, he doesn't even let them take the Famicom and set it up to show them.
He's like, I don't care how bad it is. It honestly doesn't matter. People, maybe they'll complain for a little bit, but they're still going to buy it. So, you know, he's not selling. He knows what's going to sell or what he thinks is going to sell. And it's like, it doesn't matter if it's good or not. People are going to buy it.
That's right. Kalinske and Toyota are on their way back. And this is where the idea of Segaville comes from. Toyota tells them to stop the taxi. They get out. They see this open space in a strip mall, and they're like, we're going to let people play Sega here for free. And then we're going to cover all the billboards with Sega stuff all throughout Bentonville, Arkansas to try to get them to purchase
Absolutely
our
bonkers.
stuff.
How big of a place is Bentonville, Arkansas? I'm gonna look
Probably
this up
not
real
very
quick.
big. You should look it up, though. Because
I've never heard of it, so it doesn't sound...
I mean, this is the whole thing about Bentonville, Arkansas, I think, is it's Walmart's headquarters. That's their thing. Kind of like certain towns are just like, this is where the university is, or this is where this plant is. Bentonville, Arkansas is Walmart.
It's 54,000 people. So the play here then is not like, oh, we're going to get this in front of as many people as possible. It's, we're going to get this in front of as many important Walmart people as possible. Kind of like how in Los Angeles, when they do those 4-year consideration campaigns of like TV shows and movies for Emmys and Oscars, those don't happen probably anywhere else. Maybe they happen in New York, where you'll see billboards for please vote for my my TV show or my movie in the Oscars or the Emmys, because like that's where all the people that do that voting live, is in Los Angeles. It's not because they want like a ton of people to see these billboards. It's because they want these specific people to see these billboards, and it's actually worth it to them. So it's like a similar idea of convincing. We're not trying to convince the 54,000 people of Bentonville, Arkansas, that Sega is awesome. We're trying to convince the 10 super important people at Walmart that the Sega Genesis is awesome.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, because I remember seeing those for your consideration things when I lived in Los Angeles. I'm like, why are they doing this?
Yeah,
I
it
don't
seems
vote
so
for that.
weird to see a TV show or movies like advertised in that way, but it makes total sense when you think that like probably every single person who votes on these things lives in Los Angeles.
I think that's a very apt comparison, Tyler.
Thanks.
That's a great way to explain it. Oh man. All right. So that's most of chapter 14. These chapters go by really quick too.
Yeah, Segaville's quick.
Very quick. And the next chapter is chapter 15, and it's called The Physicist is Displeased. And the physicist in question here is Olafsson. I think that's how you say it, right?
Yeah, we're getting into Sony stuff now because a challenger approaches. At this point in time, early 90s, I know the PlayStation doesn't come out for a couple more years, but early 90s is when a challenger approaches. And boy, is there some good drama here, which we've talked about before, but whew, I love it. I love this drama.
It does. And I think the cool thing about Olafsson is I don't think we've met a more chill character in any of the books we've read. This man is very smart. He's got a degree in physics, but he's also very chill. He doesn't get angered easily.
Yeah.
He's very
cool.
Vulcan to me.
Yeah.
Do you think he'd be insulted if I called him a Vulcan? I hope
Probably not.
That's
He seems like a Trek fan.
Yeah, he'd know. So if you don't know anything about Olafsson, they kind of go into it in the beginning of the chapter where they say that he was a physicist and he went to America to study physics, and he was going to he had two options at the end of his collegiate life: continue to be an academic and go into physics, or could kind of go live a wild life. And he was really leaning towards the wild life part, but his professor was like, hey, before you go, do whatever you're going to do. How about you meet with a former student of mine who uses their degree in physics and works for Sony? And he goes in just to talk to the person, and he leaves with a job.
Very nice. Well done, Olafsson.
And that job is to sell CD-ROMs for Sony, because at the time, this is a very new technology. And so he's going to all the bigwigs, including Nintendo, to try to sell them CD-ROM technology. Because CD-ROM makes sense. It's so much cheaper. It has way more space.
Mm-hmm. The book says 10 times the space of a cartridge of a Super Nintendo cartridge. It's actually closer to 100 times the space.
Oh, wow.
Because I looked up, the largest Super Nintendo cartridges were 6 megabytes, and a CD holds 650 megabytes conservatively. You can fit 700 though, if you
really squeeze it on in there.
Yeah, if you're close to the living on the edge, you know.
In my mind, you're just taking books and just pushing them into the CD-ROM.
Yeah, so 15 times almost, honestly.
So, I wonder how much it cost Nintendo to make, because they charge their third-party licensors like $10 a cartridge.
Yeah.
But if there was a difference in price based on, say, a 6 megabyte cartridge versus a 2 megabyte cartridge, or if they even did 2 megabyte, like you had to buy the biggest space and use all the space because we're paying for it.
Right. And with CDs, because you had so much space, there's stuff that you wouldn't even have dreamed of doing with a cartridge, right? Like full CD quality audio. No way you would just fit full on uncompressed audio onto a cartridge. That would be way too expensive and not worth it. But for a CD that costs 5 cents to print instead of several dollars, like just they're all the same. They all hold the same amount. So just like smash it full of awesome music and stuff. That was probably the biggest use, especially back in the days before like full motion video was really viable. Like some 32X games would do it if you had the Sega CD. There were like PlayStation games could, but like these earlier consoles couldn't really do video even if you had the space to hold it. But music, they totally could.
Yeah, because the CD-ROM is just really, really huge.
Yeah. Only downside is loading times.
That is true. The loading killed me. Man, when I switched to getting like games that were on just hard drives, downloaded from the internet, play them, you're like, loading screens are nothing. Nothing at all now.
Especially if you got SSD now. It's like the best of all the worlds.
I got mad recently because Hades takes a while to load on my Xbox because I have the old Xbox One. And I'm like, what is this? The 90s? What am I doing here? Like, I have to wait for like the Laurel to go across the bottom of the screen. It takes way too long.
That's how I feel every time I boot up my Xbox One also, because I don't have the new Xbox. And it's just like we play games and gosh, it's just loading times are unreal.
Killing me. They're truly killing me, much like people did during the console wars, as we mentioned earlier.
Lots of murder.
What we find out is Olafsson is so good at selling CD-ROMs that he eventually becomes the head of digital media, I believe is what it's called at this time. And so that means all digital content, like software content, this means for computers, for multimedia players, video games, he has it all and he covers it all. And the reason Sony creates this position is because at the same time they do this, they also purchase Columbia TriStar Pictures and CBS Records. So they're kind of going all in on CD-ROM as a media to sell across the board. So no matter whether that's video games, music, movies, you name it, they're going for it. And so that's how Olaf Olafsson finds himself in the Nintendos of America office in Redmond, Washington. Very close to me right now, probably about an hour away, with traffic, give or take, from me. And they talk about how Redmond is so beautiful, which is nice. It is. It's very isolated. It's very, very suburban. Have you been to Redmond?
I have been to Redmond before, yeah.
Yeah, it's very suburban. But the reason that Olaf Olafsson is there is not so nice. It is because he read the licensing deal that Sony is getting, and he feels it's, like most people feel at this time, it is extremely unfair to everyone but Nintendo, and that Sony is out here helping them with all sorts of stuff. Sony helped them with the audio chip for the Super Famicom. They're actually currently working with them on like a CD-ROM drive console. Why shouldn't Sony cut a deal for their licensing their games?
Yeah, they're like, we're special. We're not like those other software developers. We got hardware. We help you. We're cool, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he's also talking specifically about ImageSoft, which is Sony's game publisher. They're owned by Sony, and they're this American game publishing company, and they're just really getting screwed over by Nintendo with this deal. And he's like, why can't we get a deal? So he goes in there. Come on,
That's
man.
what I imagine he sounds like. From Iceland, he sounds like, come on.
That's why you say from Iceland. You say from Iceland because there's a line in this chapter where he talks about how he's like, Howard Lincoln is like very like making eye contact to show he understands it's a very strict contract. Like, and then Olafsson slightly changing his European accent to be kind of more vague so it doesn't sound as aggressive and know-it-all-y. And I'm like, are they both thinking these things at the same time? Like two Terminators talking to each other? Like, what is happening?
These are the things that make these businessmen different from us. They're just built different. They think about that kind of stuff that I would just never think about. And that's why I'm not the CEO. I mean, that's why I assume I'm not the CEO of Nintendo right now.
Well, you are the CEO of Codex Incorporated.
Oh, I am?
Yeah, I just made that. It's yours.
Okay.
You're the CEO.
We just signed the paperwork. You just gave me the business.
I'm the CFO officer. That's a chief friend officer of this business.
Okay.
All right. We're doing it. They kind of talk, and essentially this whole meeting gets like built up, and Olafsson gets just shut down completely. Howard Lincoln is not budging on changing the contract. So instead of like arguing with him and getting mad, this is kind of where we see Olafsson's like real smart business attitude. He just takes it in stride, starts talking about other things that Nintendo's doing. They go on a tour, they talk about stuff. It's fine. And then he just leaves without a big deal. Because in their mind, in Olafsson's mind, he's like, I'm going to have this CD drive console with Nintendo. So maybe by then we'll think of some new relationship. Olafsson's really good at just taking his time.
Yeah. He's like, okay, maybe not today, but after this whole PlayStation thing happens with Nintendo, we'll see how it goes.
And he makes a good comparison because they're sitting in this like conference room that's themed after Donkey Kong. And he says like Donkey Kong's like this originally started as like this monster that would throw barrels to prevent this plumber from doing things and having their way essentially. And Nintendo is now Donkey Kong and comparing them to that. I think it says, Donkey Kong was exceptionally difficult to beat, but if a player inserted enough quarters, put in the necessary time, and studied the patterns of the game, it eventually became beatable. And as Lincoln continued to speak about Nintendo's future, Olafsson couldn't help but think about what lay ahead for the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
You either die a jump man or live long enough to become Donkey Kong.
That's right. We should get a t-shirt made. I love that. So that's chapter 15. Chapter 16 is called Rope-a-Dope. Now, if you don't know what Rope-a-Dope is, it is made famous by the Muhammad Ali fight against George Foreman, the Rumble in the Jungle. They briefly touch on this in the book. But essentially, everyone thought George Foreman was just going to destroy Muhammad Ali in this boxing match. There's a lot of boxing in this book.
Yeah. I think Blake J. Harris may be a boxing fan.
I think so, too.
Well, there was also the boxing. I guess you're right. The boxing match of Buster Douglas too. Which, yeah, you're right.
There's just boxing. There's just boxing in this book.
Lots of boxing. Yep.
So what the strategy that Muhammad Ali employed was to kind of get beat up a little bit in the first 4 rounds to tire out George Foreman and then beat him. And it worked. And it was famous. And he was called Rope-a-Dope. And that's what Kalinske is proposing Sega of America does during the CES in Las Vegas. I believe this is 1990 because Las Vegas is winter CES and Chicago is spring. Do I have that correct? I'm pretty sure I have that.
I don't remember.
I could be. Oh, the summer show's in Chicago. Yeah, winter show Vegas, summer show, not spring show, in Chicago. So this would be winter 1990. And they're in Las Vegas. And they're saying, hey, we're going to lose this event. We can't fight Nintendo now. We got to bide our time. We're just going to show off the Game Gear. And then we're going to show off a little bit about Sonic, but kind of just tease it. And then everything else is hush-hush.
And we're going to let Nintendo just go hard and like spam everything with Super Nintendo, and we'll just let them tire themselves out.
Exactly. And that's exactly what Nintendo does, because they show everyone Super Mario World, the Super Mario Brothers movie. They talk about that at this time.
Go back a couple episodes, listen to our commentary. We did a commentary on Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah, they talk about how the Super Famicom is coming in the winter, Christmas time. And like all of this, like, is to show the strategy of Kalinske, because Kalinske does like get beat up. Like he gets bad questions. They have AV problems. They can't show off their stuff. Demos are like awry. Everything's wrong. People are like coming to their booth and talking under their breath about how lame Sega is and walking away. Aww. And they just kind of have to eat it. And I thought this chapter was great because you see the play, like they're making the strategy, and no matter what happens, Kalinske stays on brand. There's a point where he's talking at the podium, and he's losing this press conference, essentially. If you're going to look at like winning and losing, he's not doing well. And he thinks to himself, I could just do the whole 4-point plan right now. Explain to them what I'm doing, explain to them how this works. And he goes, no, this is not the time. This is the plan. The plan is to sit here and take this and have a bad show, because we know in summertime in Chicago next year, we're going to be awesome. And
Nintendo won't have anything left to show because they already showed it all.
Yeah, they'll be on the ropes. They'll be tired. They'll be George Foreman.
That's right.
This is, of course, before the grill. This is just George Foreman the boxer.
Before the PlayStation 3, when Sony would become George Foreman.
Do you remember the George Foreman grill? I feel like that was everyone in college's Instant Pot. Like now everyone's obsessed with the Instant Pot, but in college, in the mid 2000s, everyone had a George Foreman grill.
It's all about that George Foreman.
And I made a lot of burgers on my George Foreman. I did. You know, I'm not afraid to admit it.
And they were delicious.
And they were tasty. So, hey, you know what? Sorry you lost the Rumble in the Jungle, George Foreman, but your grill is great. High fives all around.
Who really won at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm. Who did?
If it's all about making money, that's the question.
That is the question. Well, I guess George Foreman did, because he made a bunch of money on the George Foreman grill. So the one thing about this chapter, though, that I love, and I got so excited, I think we jumped on this call together, and I told Tyler about it, because I am obsessed with this game. We get the pitch for Echo the Dolphin. The Sega game. Ed Annunziata, I believe is how you say it. He's a self-taught programmer that works for Sega at this time. And they're all at their final meal of the show. So they're all really down. They're all drinking wine. They're at an Italian restaurant in a strip mall next to their hotel, because Sega does not have the nicest hotel in Vegas. And in a clearly scripted conversation between Ed and another member of Sega to get Al Nielsen's attention, and Al just goes, What? What do you want? Just tell me. Stop with this. Just tell me what you want. Ed Annunziata describes Echo the Dolphin, the game, and what it is. And then Al is just blown away and like, we're doing it. We're doing it because it's weird and we need to be different. And that's what this is. And I loved it because as a kid, I played Echo the Dolphin not knowing what I was doing, but would just play the first mission, like the first level, like over and over again, because I didn't know how to beat it. I just thought it was really cool that you're a dolphin.
I just watched the long play that you linked to me, and I still don't know what's happening in this game.
The whole story is you're a dolphin, and your pod gets like swooped up in this cyclone and thrown across the world of Echo the Dolphin. I don't know if it's Earth or not. I'm going to be honest with you. I have no idea. This magical ocean that you live in. And you have to use like solve puzzles and talk to the other oceanic creatures and find your pod again. But it's very confusing and no one gives you instructions and it's very hard, is how I would describe it.
Okay.
But as a child, I love this game because you got to be a dolphin and the soundtrack slaps. It's a real bop, as the kids say.
It is what the kids say.
That is what the kids are saying right now. They're not
It's
saying
fire.
that. It is pure fire, is what they're saying. So, while we get the intro to Echo the Dolphin, but while the rest of this chapter is really bad for Sega, this whole time, it's kind of rope-a-dope as a chapter is Sega basically taking L's left and right. This final scene where they're sitting in a Italian restaurant, in a strip mall, outside their hotel, and they're all drinking wine, but they all have this like camaraderie from having gone through this, I thought was beautiful. I loved it. They're sharing stories, they're bonding, and you kind of see like Kalinski's humor of like making jokes about like, he'll like have the boss like standard response to a thing, and then he'll say really what he thinks, and that makes everybody laugh, and I thought it was great. So that's rope-a-dope. Any questions on rope-a-dope, Tyler?
No, it makes total sense to me. It's taking an L early in winter CES so that you can come out swinging at summer CES and knock out George Foreman, which is Nintendo. Nintendo is George Foreman in this metaphor.
Do you want to look something up for me?
Yeah.
Can you look up if Echo the Dolphin is on the Sega emulator for Nintendo Switch? Because if it is, I might be playing some Echo the Dolphin tonight. Let's go throw that out there.
All right. I'm looking it up. Echo the Dolphin.
If you want to beat this game, by the way, it's only, according to this long play, takes 1 hour to beat the game if you know where you're going.
I think if you know what you're doing, it takes 100 hours to be able to know what you're doing.
Real low commitment,
It looks like it is, according to a quick Google search.
Okay, well, look who's getting their Switch. I'm going on a trip to Europe in 3 or 4 days, and I am going to be playing the easy battery life games like Earthbound and stuff on my Switch. And I think it might be time for me to break out the Echo the Dolphin again. That's what I'm saying.
I love it.
I'm into it. All right. Last chapter that we're going to cover today is chapter 17. It's called Showdown. And Showdown is fun because we now jump forward in time to that 1991 Chicago CES. And where there's so much betrayal, so much intrigue, drama.
Oh, man.
This is like an episode of Succession.
Oh yeah, dude. They should do like a TV show based on this whole thing. Like I know there's a documentary film, Console Wars, but they should do like a whole season of a TV show.
Oh yeah, who would play Tom Kalinske? It's got to be someone charming.
Yeah, it would be like well, speaking of Succession, I would get like what's the guy that plays Tom on Succession?
Oh, he's
Matthew
great.
McFadden. Yeah, he could play Tom Kalinske.
He could play Tom Kalinske. He's also got strong CEO vibes.
He really does.
So, the Showdown chapter opens up at CES at Chicago in 1991, and Olafsson is going on stage to be at a panel for Nintendo where they're going to announce the Sony... Is it Sony Nintendo PlayStation? Is that how you describe it?
Yeah, the Sony Nintendo PlayStation is probably accurate. Olafsson, so excited. He's like, I can't wait. We've been working so hard on this. They're going to tell everybody about it. It's going to be the best.
And then what happens, Tyler? What happens?
Well... Nintendo gets up on stage. I can't remember exactly who it is.
It is.
Is it Arakawa?
It is Arakawa. Yeah. No, it's not. It's Howard.
Howard Lincoln. That's right. Because Arakawa doesn't do public speaking.
He doesn't do. That's kind of one thing they brush upon in this chapter is anytime there's some sort of public speaking for Nintendo of America, it's always either going to be Peter Main or Howard Lincoln. Because Arakawa, not a big public speaker.
Yeah. So Howard Lincoln gets up on stage and he starts talking about how great that this new thing that they're making uses CD-ROM technology. It's going to be so fun. We have partnered with a great company that knows all about CD-ROMs. And Olafsson is thinking he's about to start talking about us because we're a great company. We know all about CD-ROMs. We've been working on this with them. And then Howard Lincoln says, that company is called Philips, which is just just take a moment here.
It's just...
Let it sink in.
A punch to the gut.
They didn't even tell Sony beforehand that they're not going through with this deal, which I think is actually extremely disrespectful. Like to go up to have people in the audience that have been working on this thing that you're about to announce, and you're going to announce that you are not working with them. You're actually working with someone else you haven't been telling them about. That's extremely disrespectful, IMO, and I think that was very unprofessional of Nintendo to do it that way. They should have talked days, even weeks before and said, hey, this is not working out for us, Sony. Sorry, dog, we're going with another partner. And then weeks later, announce a new partner. That's what I think they should have done, but...
And the book explains the betrayal, which I think is so interesting. So Yamauchi essentially did this purposefully to humiliate Sony, because when they made this deal with Sony about CD-ROMs, Sony was just like a TV company. They had no stake. This was before Olafsson gets hired.
They didn't make software, you mean?
No software, just a TV company. And then as they start buying CBS Records and TriStar's films, and you kind of see that the deal that they had would actually not make Nintendo have full control over the licensing with this new console like they do with all their others. So it would actually give Sony quite a bit of wiggle room to control things. And that was the main reason that he dumped Sony from the deal, Yamauchi did. But it says that he also decided not to inform Sony of his side deal with Philips to ensure that Sony's humiliation was made public, but it doesn't say really why he chooses to humiliate them. He just does it. Is it like a business tactic? I don't understand.
I don't know. Like, is he just mad because because Olaf tried to go in there and get a sweetheart deal with Nintendo? That's just business, man. You can't be like, I don't know. It just feels underhanded and like spiteful, I guess. Like, I don't know how it helps Nintendo to do it that way. But it seems like just hurting Sony to hurt Sony. And if you consider Sony an enemy at this point, which they were not, because they made the sound chip for the Super Nintendo, they had been working on this PlayStation thing with them. They made games for the Super Nintendo through ImageSoft. Like, why would you want to alienate this company? And I mean, as we all know, it backfired spectacularly, because if they hadn't done that, then the PlayStation, like the Sony PlayStation, would never have existed. And now Sony's a huge force in the gaming industry and is a huge competitor to Nintendo.
Yeah, so in the way this humiliation, Yamauchi definitely paid for it. That's for sure.
And I don't get the like wanting control over the software stuff, because Philips was developing the CDI, which was going to be sort of like an add-on. They were going to work with that to be Super Nintendo. That ended up not really happening, but they still put out the CDI, and they still had access to Nintendo's IPs, and famously made some of the worst games ever, like with these Nintendo IPs. I'm talking Zelda, those 3 games, Wand of Gamelon, what are the other forgettable games? I forget what they're all called.
Oh, yeah.
They're awful, truly terrible games. And then there's a couple Mario games in there too. So Nintendo didn't even get that out of this. Like, you would have thought they would want to hold on tightly to their IP to make sure that no bad games get made, and that did not happen. Yeah,
and I think we see here too that. So I found the quote I was looking for regarding to like why they did this. Yamauchi instructed, first of all, Arakawa Lincoln would fly to Philips in Eindhoven, the Netherlands, to talk about this like secret deal. And the reason why is because, quote, he had realized that the deal he signed in 1988 gave Sony the right to control software for a joint CD venture. And this detail hadn't appeared to be a problem back then, when Sony was exclusively a consumer electronics company, making television, stereos, and music devices like the Walkman and the minidisc player. But with their acquisition of CBS Records, Columbia TriStar Films, and now the creation of an electronic publishing group, they were growing too ambitious for Yamauchi's tastes. End quote. So it really is just power. That's all it is.
Well, that backfired spectacularly. CDI was awful. They made terrible games. And now Sony was like, fine, I'll do it myself. And Thanos'd it big time.
He Thanos'd it so hard. So the one thing I want to go back to real quick in the presentation in the book, because it's important to note for what comes next, is they announced the Super Famicom and confirmed that there would be no backward compatibility. And they also confirmed that at launch, there would be Super Mario World would come with the console, and then it would have F-Zero, Pilot Wings, Gradius 3, and SimCity would come with available to purchase separately, and then more 18 games would be available like Christmas. That's important because Kalinske and Nielsen are caught in the back of this dramatic scene at the Nintendo press conference here, okay? Mm-hmm. And a reporter comes up to them and is like, oh, do I want to make a story about like Sega execs watching this happen and how scared they are after all these announcements? And they just go, come with us. And they take him to the Sega booth and they show them Sonic and they blow this person away. And they also show the reporter Nintendo's own book, which is like, it's called like How to Buy a Console the Nintendo Guide to Choosing a Video Game System. And in that book, it encourages you to buy a console with the most games. And so they take that announcement that there's only going to be 4 games at launch and then more at Christmas and say, we have way more games for the Sega Genesis, including Sonic the Hedgehog and many more to come. So they're like, Nintendo's telling you to buy our console. So they like flip everything around and they really start the buzz, like the Sonic buzz and the Sega buzz, which I just found great. They turned it all around.
Yeah, I love it. Just taking their own thing and using it against them. That's beautiful. That's what Sega would do with a lot of their marketing in this time period when they're the underdog. They would kind of take all these things that Nintendo did and sort of turn it around on them.
That's right. And I find this chapter great because we finally start to see like the switch over, and they have kind of like a thing for everything. There's like the big other complaint that the reporter says about the Sega stuff. This is what Nielsen says. He says, quote, Nintendo may have 32,768 colors, but I think it's safe to say that Mario literally pales in comparison. And he's talking about Sonic because in this hall, their like little space they have for Sega, they have a TV running Mario and a TV running Sonic. So you can see the speed difference side to side. And it blows people away. Maybe he's just super happy that they get a win in this last chapter we're going to read today.
Love it.
The final part, though, is Kalinske getting snubbed by RoccoW, though. Did you remember that part?
Yeah, tell the story.
He just tries to meet with him over and over again at the whole time at CES, and it just never works out. And it's very clear he's actively ignoring him. But Kalinske, again, doesn't really mind. He's like, I'm just going to shake this off because his thought was like, I'm going to steal all their customers. So this is totally fine.
Yep.
The other reason they were so confident, too, in this part of the book is they reveal that when they did the focus groups of Sonic and Mario, they strictly chose kids that owned a Nintendo system already, and Mario was considered one of their favorite games. And they had them play Super Mario World and then Sonic, or the other way around, I don't know. And 80% of the kids chose Sonic over Super Mario.
The old Pepsi challenge.
That's right, yeah. That's what they did. And I just find it so great. Also, to show Olafsson's kind of chillness once again, when this happens to him and he gets embarrassed with the whole Philips Electronics deal thing, he doesn't even really react. He's just like a stone on stage. Just doesn't let it bother him. And that's, I think, huge too, because if he like lost his composure and got super mad there, it wouldn't have helped anything and it would just kind of embarrass Sony. But he just was like, hey, it's fine. It's a surprise.
I guess we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. So I like this. I feel like these chapters we read today and talk about today are all examples of keeping your cool in a bad situation.
Yeah.
Because that's what they all do here. And because they keep their cool, they don't look silly. They definitely have to take some L's along the way, but like Kalinske doesn't break when they have the horrible experience at Vegas CES in 1990. Olafsson doesn't break when Howard Lincoln's just kind of schmoozing him to say they're not going to give him a better deal. And then he doesn't break again when he gets embarrassed. And Kalinske doesn't care that RoccoW's like snubbing him a meeting. It's just whatever. We'll just be fine. And I think that's a great lesson. And that's the end of our PBS kids show, because that's what it feels like.
Great lesson at the end of the chapter.
Once again, this book just kind of the way that they do the narrative, and it surprises me every time. And I think that was kind of like the whole thing about this one, was just like keeping your cool and playing your cool and biding your time too.
Yeah. Yep. That's a lot of what Sega was doing at this point in time.
Biding their time. And that's how they became competitive. So next week's show, we're going to probably be doing something a little different, just a little break from the book. And then because I'll be gone. And then week after that, we'll get back to the book again.
Yes. Can't wait.
With that, let's get into some emails. You want to read some emails?
Sure.
This first one is from Sage. Do you want to read Sage's, or do you want me to read Sage's?
I'll read Sage's. Sage says, hello, Mike and Tyler. It's been a while since I've emailed, and I just wanted to say I love the work you guys do for this podcast, and it's the highlight of my week. Keep it up. Thanks, Sage. Star Wars The Force Unleashed is a game I owned on the Nintendo DS and the Wii. While I love the game, I always saw some slight differences between the games. Not graphics or gameplay differences, but story elements instead. The games had different level designs, dialogue, characters, and even different endings, if I remember correctly. One of my buddies had the PS2 version, and I remember the game looking nothing like mine. I've always wondered what was happening with this game and figured you guys would be the perfect detective duo to figure it out. I know you just started console wars, but it would just be a fun topic to learn about. Legal battles, betrayal, friendships and hardships, murder. I ran out of alliterations for Spider Butts, so Spider Butts.
Hey, so Spider Butts is alliteration too.
So Spider Butts.
So yeah, this is a great topic. I played Force Unleashed for Xbox 360 and the second one. I think the Force Unleashed one was a 360 game.
Yes. And it was on PS2, I think. I would have assumed the Wii and PS2 versions would be the same because that happened a lot when a game would be like on 360 and PS3, and then it had a Wii version that would also be similar to the PS2 version just because the relative powers of the system were more in line, I think. But I guess that's not the case with Force Unleashed.
Here's what I'm going to do, Sage. I am going to put this on our list, and I'm going to say underneath it, like, specifically look at the differences between the console handheld versions and see what happens, because that's a thing we've talked about before, how certain games have different endings or level designs based on their system they're on. I think that came up a lot with Batman stuff.
Yep, I love that stuff when the like a newer generation version of a game is like wildly different from the old generation. I think Splinter Cell Double Agent is like that. The Xbox 360 version and PlayStation 3 version is like a completely different game from the original Xbox and PS2 and GameCube version, which plays much more like just Chaos Theory 2. Whereas like it's a little bit like there's like some weird not open world, but like some weird moral choice stuff that happens in the later versions. But what's interesting about the Splinter Cell one is that the previous generation, the original Xbox version of that game, is considered widely by most people to be better than the later generation one on the 360 and PS3.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, see, this is all great to talk about. That'll be a fun topic. Thank you, Sage. That's a great topic of different levels and story specifically for different console. If a game ends differently, that's pretty wild. The next email we have is from Mackenzie, and it's called, I Did a Thing. I drew something for you. I'll post it in the Discord when the episode goes up. I was going to include podcast producer Toby, but it's just Delilah until I figure out what Toby looks like, lol. Loving the Console Wars book, Spider Butts, Mackenzie. This is a great picture. I'm not going to spoil it, because Mackenzie's going to put it in Discord.
Yeah, it's very nice.
It's a very nice picture, and I love it. And I'm considering putting it on our website. I love it. I think I'm going to put it on our website. That's a pretty easy thing to do. I think that's neat. Thank you, Mackenzie, for doing this.
Mackenzie.
I love it. We've never gotten fan art before. But let me just say, it also involves Jaybird, which is important.
It definitely involves Jaybird, which is,
very important. Okay.
Yes.
Next email. These two emails look like they're similar, but they are, I don't know how to describe it, I guess formatted differently. I think there was some sort of email thing going on right now. So how about we read the first one from Zach, the Forgotten Games one.
Okay. Hey guys, love the cast. I feel like I'm right in your wheelhouse. I was born in August 1988. I grew up the same time as you guys. I just finished all episodes up till now. That's a lot of episodes. There was a mini-series you guys said you would do about Forgotten Games. I need more, LOL. I have 4 games listed. Legend of Dragoon, Legend of Legaia, Killing Floor 2, or the great but forgotten Xbox kart racer Blur, which is... So I'll talk about those real quick. I haven't played Legend of Dragoon or Legend of Legaia, although I know they are legendary JRPGs on the original PlayStation. I should play them. I've never played Killing Floor 2, but I've seen it. I feel like it goes on sale all the time on Steam where it's like 50 cents.
Yeah.
But the long forgotten but great Xbox kart racer Blur I have played, and I love that game because it looks like a realistic sort of like car racing game, but then it also just has items from Mario Kart. It definitely plays more like a kart racer with items and like blowing things up and like just being over the top and ridiculous. But like if you walked right by it, you might just think it was like a Need for Speed or something like that, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I remember seeing Blur, but I never actually played it. So that would be a fun thing for us to play too.
Yeah, I think I picked it up in a Steam sale or something at one point. I don't know. Must have been like 10 years ago that I played it, but it was pretty cool. Okay, final question. My last name is Bowser. Was it fair for my friends growing up to say I had to use Bowser in Mario Kart or Mario Party or Super Smash Bros? Great question.
I'm going to say yes.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel like if that's your name, you're
sorry,
bud.
Sorry. I
That's the way it
would have
goes.
done it. You know, if I was a kid, I would have made you do it. I mean, now maybe you can play other characters, but like in that
But growing up, yeah.
environment, you got to play Bowser.
Sorry,
it's
buddy.
You're a giant lizard turtle.
Giant lizard with
thing,
spikes on his shell.
Right? Is it a turtle or a lizard? He's a dragon?
Yeah, he breathes fire. I don't know if he's like a specific species
Okay,
or if it's
two
just an
things.
amalgamation.
One, yes, you have to play Bowser. Two, can a video game biologist, tell us what species of animal Bowser is? 'Cause we're curious.
Zach ends his message with Black Widow butts. Zach.
Nice.
Thanks,
That's
Zach.
a good one. That's a good one. Thank you, Zach. That's good. That's good. If you want to send us an email, you can send us one at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can also send one on our website, codexpodcast.net. You can join our Discord by either sending us an email and I'll send you a link, or you can go onto my Twitter @mecoletta and look at the pinned tweet. That's an invite that never expires. Tyler's on Twitter too, @SneakerElf. Next week, we'll be doing a fun thing. I'm really excited. And then that's it, I think, right? I think we covered it for today. We crushed
That's it.
All right. You want to say bye to everybody, Tyler?
Goodbye, everybody.